everybody. Welcome to, I don't know what camera to look at. We are in a studio, folks. This is cool. This is the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And what is the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show? It's the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how to not do crazy stupid stuff, but to do meaningful things with your marketing efforts so that they do meaningful things for your business. And today, if you looked at the title of the show, we are talking about the flexibility that's required for creativity. So anybody out there in the comments want to point out what is different about this episode? I already gave it away. We're in a studio. We're in a studio, and it's kind of weird for me, to be honest with you, because I'm talking to a camera instead of my computer. It feels weird. We're going to see how it goes. But we're trying on something new because when we're flexible, it creates new opportunities for creativity. So this is what we're going to be exploring today, friends. And as always, I'm not going to be exploring this by myself, but I am going to be exploring this with a lovely guest who we have here in the studio. I'm going to say that probably a bunch of times today because I'm a nerd and I'm excited about being in a studio. In the studio with Laila Hobbs, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about the importance of flexibility in the ability to be creative. And when we're talking about marketing, we're talking a lot about being creative. We want people to be creative. So let's explore. Let's explore today together, Laila. Before we get started, tell us a little bit more about who you are and a little brief history of yours in the arena of marketing.
Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here, Tracy. This is going to be a little bit fun today, I think.
We do a lot of fun on this show, just so you know.
Well, you know what? Then it's maximum fun. Turn that dial right up.
Turn it up to 11.
But yeah, a little bit about my background. This is my studio. This is Social Launch Labs, and today we are filming in it. And this is a small studio that is designed for small and medium-sized businesses or people like yourself who are having fun with live streaming and filming and all those things. But how did I get here? That's a real big question.
How did you get here, Laila?
It was a long and tumultuous journey, and it started with me being locked in a bank vault, then proceeded to me doing a couple of TV shows, social media, and then decided I wanted to make a career out of doing social media marketing. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the very condensed version, but how I really ended up here is two things. I love being a creative person, and I love being in front of the camera, and I love working with small, medium-sized businesses. So when you put those two passions together, we started our first business, which was a traditional social media marketing agency, me and my partner. And then we transferred it into this business, which is really more of a unique business style. And it's really targeted to give access to small and medium-sized business owners marketing help. Because as we know, it can be super expensive for a traditional marketing agency to work with a small business. Mm-hmm. So that's where we come in. You rent the space, you do a little bit more of the hands-on work if you're a small business owner, but you still get the guidance of marketing professionals.
And you get fancy cameras and a whole bunch of cool lights, and you can even put your headphones behind you on the thing. Okay, so let's talk about when you were making that transition from the kind of traditional social media management into something that seemed like it fit not only your purpose, but the needs of your market, what role did flexibility have in that?
It was everything. I think one of the biggest things about traditional social media or traditional marketing agencies in general is they're not prepared to take on the needs of social media. Social media, you need somebody who can be in front of the camera. You need a videographer, you need an editor, it's a different set of skills than, hey, we're going to create a cool ad. Even if you're doing a TV ad, which I did TV, I know what that looks like. That's very rigid. There's a lot of corporate structure. There's a lot of, we want things to be like this. Don't say this, we're only going to use this phrase. But in social media marketing, you can be whoever you want to be, even if that means being the most ridiculous person possible. Look at businesses like Scrub Daddy or Duolingo or Ryanair. What board of directors would approve any of their videos? None of them.
I love Duolingo, by the way.
Oh my God. I think they've really broken the mold when it comes to social media marketing. And so that's what we said is, okay, traditional agencies are not designed to take on this level of risk per se. And so when we are transitioning into this studio, it was all about how do we give people the flexibility to be as risky or as not risky as they want to be.
Or as themselves as they want to be.
I like
perhaps.
it. Yeah, I think that's a better way to phrase it. Absolutely.
Some of us are more risk averse, some of us are less risk averse.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about social media management,
Mm.
because I think a lot of people assume that that means posting a post on LinkedIn. Okay, folks, I know you were thinking it. So that's why I'm asking it, because this, I mean, I see that a lot, especially from a business perspective, right? We get into the business world, and maybe you're even a solopreneur, you have a small team, but you have this expectation that now what I'm supposed to do is put like brochure posts on social media, and that is social media management. And we've gotten to the point where now you can hire a social media manager to do that on social media pages. But in a couple minutes ago, you mentioned about how this is really about, I interpreted it as personality.
Yes.
Right? So you got to have someone out there talking, like presenting, video, interactivity, like what is that? So where do you think the concept of social media management is missing the boat from being able to communicate the personality of a brand?
Here's the thing that I think about it. And I see a lot of, and this is not a dig on traditional marketing agencies or traditional marketers, but I think what people come into it is they see social media and go, this is a billboard.
Right.
Every post should look like a billboard post. No, social media is more of a diary. It's more of a journal. When you're sitting there at bed late at night and you're writing down your inner thoughts about, oh, how did my business go today? Or here's a cool thing I learned about the niche that I'm in, or so on and so forth. That's what social media is. Right? You have to be so much more authentic. And the reason you have to be is because people can sniff out an ad faster than anything else. Okay, I'm a Gen Z. I grew up with ads in my hand, in my head. I know what an ad looks like. I want real content that's interesting to me, that provides some value. And we always say there's two ways to provide value on social media: education or entertainment. Cat videos, that's entertainment. Watching Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about something, that's education. And if you can blend the two, that's where you're going to get the best type of content. But you have to do it in your way, and you have to be a little bit more open to sharing who you are personally. It's a much more intimate marketing platform than the TV, than a magazine, than anything else, because the amount of quantity that you can put out. If you can take a little bit more risk, and you can say, you know what, I don't know how this video goes, but I'm going to put it out because I feel like this is an authentic version of myself. Right. And when you do that, you can have a positive response. But if you also feel like, oh, you know what, I didn't really like how this comes, you can take it down. And the cost is not there as if I'm printing an ad in a magazine. It better be perfect.
Right.
So I think that's where I think a lot of, when you look at social media marketing through the traditional marketing lens, it gets really murky and you miss the point of social media marketing.
So first of all, I would like to believe this show is edutainment. Educational, entertainment. Sometimes we're funny. It depends on your interpretation of funny. I think I'm funny, but that's my own opinion. But it's also like, I get a lot of people who ask me like how I do the show, and I have a way, I have a checklist of things I do and all of this, and I can share that. I can share that with people, but that doesn't mean that is the way to do a LinkedIn live stream or any kind of live interactive social media. And I think innately the issue that I'm hearing in your description too is that like we took the social out of social media and we just did media, but the social media platform is meant to be social. And so if we're not showing up as social, or even we don't know enough about ourselves of how we do that, because this is something that's interesting to me too, in the relationship between like analog relationships and conversations and digital relationships and conversations. There I did. I was like, I'm going to hit the mic for sure. And I did it. Number one, you guys want to count? We can like take bets. But like we have a way that we might connect with people in the real world. And then we get onto social media and it's digital. And all of a sudden we're like, well, now what do I do? And I'm always like, but you get like, be yourself, like do what you do in real life and do it digitally. And it's actually the reason why I do the show like I do, because I like to talk to people. So I have a show where I talk to people. It's not like mind-blowingly creative, but it is like it's my way of doing that. So in the work that you guys do, and even with the people who have been into the studio, kind of what have you seen as that progression going from like maybe a somewhat of a fear to being in front of the camera from a digital perspective, and bridging that gap to make it closer to feel like it's just something you would do?
You know, that's a great topic to talk about, because I think getting in front of the camera, there's such an emotional aspect to that compared to just traditional marketing and putting an ad in a magazine, or,
Right.
you know, we're doing a Super Bowl
There's like
commercial.
a buffer. It's not you.
No, and people, okay, think about this. Remember when you were back in high school and you had to do a presentation
I
in
try
front of
not
the
to think
class?
about high school, but just
You and me both. But you'd have to do the presentation in front of the class, and you'd be sitting in your seat waiting to get called up, and you're anxious, and you know, it's that fear of being seen. Right? A lot of people still embody that well into their adulthood, because typically people don't do a lot of public speaking.
Right.
And doing videos on camera, that is a form of public speaking. And so I think there's this anxiety of, how am I going to be perceived? Like, how am I going to act? But once you get in it, especially when you're doing something interview style like this, it turns into a conversation.
Right.
You have conversations every single day. Everybody can sit in front of the camera and have a conversation and sound coherent and say something intelligent.
Especially if you're not concerned about being in front of the camera. You're just having a conversation.
And I think once we get clients in here, and especially with repeat clients, you see the first day, they're like, you know, did I say that right? And then by the third or fourth time they're in here, you know, they're ready, they're going, and they get more comfortable with the space, because once you dive into it, you see it's not as scary as, you know, standing in front of a class with 30 people who, you know, maybe Jimmy's gonna throw a paper airplane. Here it's just, you know, our studio manager, which is typically me, and whoever you're talking to, right? It doesn't have to be as scary as people experience it. But then again, it's, you know, once you experience something, then you know. There's a little bit of the fear of unknown, as well as being the fear of perceived.
Well, then I mean, let's talk about flexibility and our like skills we build in terms of flexibility, because I feel like this is really where the value exists, because there will always be unknowns. We will never get to a point in history or future, my friends, where we can predict what is going to happen and we're going to be right. We're not seers. I think that's just a thing they make up in the movies. And you might have your own experience with that. But the thing is that regardless, we can't predict everything, and nor will we ever be able to predict everything. So when we have this, I'm experiencing it as like an investment in being flexible. Like, how does that impact this ability to deal with unknowns?
Like you said, we live in a world where you cannot predict what is happening. And every single day, particularly if you're a business owner, every single day is absolutely different. But just like any other skill, being flexible, or being able to be flexible, I think that's a skill as well. You can learn it, you can improve on it, you can build it up so that you can get thrown on set, you know, with no information, and just speak, right? And I think we're seeing in the last maybe 10 to 15 years this increase in the idea of soft skills. You know, can you communicate effectively? You know, do you sound professional? Are you someone who is in a leadership position, or who can help guide people in different ways? I think being able to sit in front of a camera and speak to somebody coherently about a topic is another skill. But you have to be flexible enough to go through the period of time where you're bad.
Right.
Because you're going to be bad the first couple of times. But like any skill, you get better. So I think, you know, as a business owner, flexibility is endlessly important. But putting yourself in positions where you can practice flexibility will improve you all the way around. And I think something as simple as this is coming and having a conversation in front of a camera and being okay with this, and being okay with, oh, are we going to be able to see the comments, or, you know, whatever else is happening in the video. That helps increase your flexibility tolerance per se.
Yeah. Well, and I think then it like increases your unpredictability tolerance, and you get kind of like play in the zone.
Yeah.
Right. An interesting point, folks, because Laila mentioned the thing about the comments, and this was my thing where like, I'm like, there's a camera over there that I don't have a computer, right? Like, I can't see the comments. But that does not mean your comments are not coming through. So if you are in the conversation, you have questions about flexibility, you'd like to share your perspective, please put them through in the comments. Laila has a tablet.
I have the iPad, the comment iPad.
And the producer has the power to show them on the screen. So we have like all the capabilities. We're just playing. We're having fun. So if you want to help us test out our having fun in this arena, please post a comment so we can test that capacity as well. We would appreciate that. I think this is interesting too, because so like you're talking about how first of all, I don't know why I feel like I should frame this. When we are saying flexibility, we're not meaning that you can bend over backwards and touch your ankles, right? Like Cirque du Soleil style.
There is actually studies that say that if you are more physically flexible, you're also more mentally flexible. There is a correlation between physical flexibility and mentally
Okay,
flexibility.
so there's a correlation.
Mhm.
You don't have to be physically flexible to start practicing this version of the skill. If you want to add to your physical flexibility as well, double win. But it's our ability to adjust and change and adapt. And I think if any of us have learned anything since COVID, we're like, well, this is a very valuable skill that we can have. And so Laila, talk a little bit about why marketing is a good place to start building that kind of flexibility, skill, or resiliency that then might be able to extrapolate to other parts of your business. Number 2 for hitting the microphone if you're counting.
You know, the thing that I love about marketing is 2 + 2 does not equal 4. Marketing is not like math. Like I come from a computer science background. That's my education. So I have this hard science background where, you know, you write a line of code, it should do exactly what you say. Marketing's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing, things go wrong all the time. You have perceptions in your head where you put out a video or something and expect it to do really well and it flops. And then you put out another video where you're like, oh, I'm just going to put this out, but I don't think it's particularly good. And it gets 7 million views. You know, so marketing is so unpredictable because there's so many variables that go into it. You can't visualize that in your own head. So you have to experiment. You have to be open to trying new things. So right there, marketing is the crucible of creativity and of flexibility because there is no magic formula to do exactly what you want it to do, right? So in marketing, if you can be playful, you will have more successful marketing because for every 9 videos that don't hit, the 10th one will be a viral video. Mm-hmm. But you have to be willing to play.
Right. Well, and I think like, what role would you even say that has? I never encourage people to like try to go viral, right? Like, just like you said, something might go viral, but it will be like the thing you do not expect.
Yeah, probably the thing you don't want to go viral.
Right. Because that's just the way the world works. But like, if that's not our goal, but like, how do you feel like the energy of play actually ends up contributing or not contributing to how people end up consuming the content?
Think about this. Dogs. Why do people like dogs?
Because they're cute and playful.
And they're fun. And they have good vibes and they have good energy. It's the same thing. How do you make a friend? Mm-hmm. You like someone. If you sit there and you met Spock, you know, you might not be as connected to Spock right away, right? But it's people's personalities and it's people's intricacies and the little quirks that they have that make us connect to other people, mm-hmm. right? So in marketing, you have to have that play. Mm-hmm. Because if you want that brand connection, people have to see your brand as not a brick wall.
Right.
There's got to be something more. There's got to be that personality. There's got to be that experience, mm-hmm. you know? So that's where you really tie in the idea of play and marketing and bring it all together for the consumer to consume content. Because I'm not watching math videos for fun.
My son is watching math videos for fun, so you might be out there watching.
You might be, but everybody has their different thing. I did my time in university where I did watch my math videos, but I'm in a different stage of my life now, right? Mm-hmm. That was me then. This is a different version now. I'm consuming a different type of content. Mm-hmm. So you really just got to dial into, okay, what type of content do people actually want to consume? And particularly, what type of content do your customers consume? Mm-hmm. Who is your customer? What do they care about? Like, these are standard marketing questions we always ask. You just got to translate that a little bit into, let's have fun with this content and let's connect to them in a real way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, from the flexibility perspective, when I'm thinking about target audience or ideal clients or whatever thing we've come up with to call it nowadays, it's the same thing, folks. It's always been the same thing. You're the people you're trying to talk to, right? They also, even if they don't necessarily have the awareness of this, are a moving target. Let's call it that. So like they may or may not have the intention of being flexible, but there's different things that are happening in their life that are making them change their consuming habits or their purchasing habits. And they have things that are making them change. And so by not being flexible, we're actually not keeping up with the market, right? Which is like, I always say the number one, there's a lot of number one things I've said about marketing, but like that's not one of the goals we usually have as marketers, is to fall behind the market. right? Like we generally want to stay ahead of, or at least keep up with, the market. And so if we're not practicing that skill of flexibility, there's a very high likelihood that we are going to get left behind. I mean, Blockbuster.
Oh my God. BlackBerry.
Yep.
Like, there are huge companies that have collapsed. Companies that you think you can't sink this ship.
Right.
But just like the Titanic, down they go. But you got to keep up with times. You got to keep up with people. Like, the world is changing more rapidly than it's ever changed. You know, we have globalization. We have every piece of human knowledge at our fingertips that we've ever created, more or less. You know, that's going to change people, right? The dynamics of our society are changing every single day. Who's in office? You know, what the political situation is. Whether or not the bananas this year are good, you know? The bananas this year were not good. I stopped eating bananas. But even
I did just get a nice batch of bananas, just FYI.
I'm going to have to go back to the store because I was not happy with it. But that's the thing, right? People change and people are different. And every single day there's something different. Your client wakes up and they're a different person, right? And our job as marketers, we're kind of like psychics. You know, we could, like, in a roundabout way. I will never
promise you that I know the future, folks. No. I tell my son this all the time. I cannot read your mind, just so you know.
Yeah.
I will never be able to.
If you spitball enough, you'll find the right thing. You'll find the right thing.
And I think this is why I love this concept of play in marketing, is because it's almost like, and I've seen this happen a lot of times, right? You play, you test, you experiment, you play, you evolve, and you find a thing. You find a thing that works, and then you're like, that's the thing. And then you ride it into the ground for like 10 years. And then you're like, why doesn't this work anymore? I mean, it worked at the time because it was a good manifestation of who you are. It matched the clients, it matched the industry, it matched what was going on in the global economy. But like 10 years later, that's probably not all the same. Like, you've changed as a business, your customers have changed as people, the global economy has changed, your industry has changed, it's either more mature, like got new startups changing. Like, it's not the same. And so it's not even like we're trying to find a destination, like being creative to the point where we figure out the thing and then we just like let it slowly die. Please don't do that. It's an ongoing creative process. And when we practice that flexibility and incorporating the flexible nature of things we see in the market into that conversation on an ongoing basis, well, now this allows us to be consistently creative instead of just like creative for, I need to optimize this email subject line. I mean, can we please let our marketing coordinators be more creative than that? Because like, this is just annoying to me. But this is the thing, like it's ongoing. It's not, there's no destination really for creativity.
You know, and this is the thing that I find so interesting about businesses. I hope my business will outlive me. I hope my business is successful enough to run for the next 100 years, whether or not I'm at the helm of my business. But most executives are in for a 5 to 10 year term. I want the business to be successful for the next 5 to 10 years. And then I couldn't.
Oh, should we talk about politics? I'm the leader for 3 years, and I want this to be successful for 3 years.
And then I could care less, you know, what happens at the end, right? Yeah. So I think when we have a very narrow focus on, okay, what is the point of this marketing campaign? It's not just to, okay, we're going to make a ton of money right now. You're creating a living entity. Any real big business is its own living entity. It's got its own personality. It's got its own vibe. It has its own impact in the world and in the economy that's completely separate from any one human being. And this is like, if you're thinking long-term like that, now you can be more open to this idea of flexibility and to this idea of play and, okay, longevity. You know, I want this business to succeed after me. What do we have to do to get it to that position rather than, you know, let's just cut all of our, you know, cost right now and run this business in the ground so we can have the short-term profit. Right. And so I think there's a little bit of a separation between typical management and then these creative marketers who are in it for the long run, and then management who and it's not true in every case, but it can be very often true. I just want the next quarter to be better.
Right.
And I think until we make that separation, or until we actually bring them together and say, let's figure out a way to do this collaboratively, you're going to have that friction between the creative marketers and the, you know, the bureaucrats who are like, I just want a guarantee that next month, you know, our revenue will increase by 10%.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of work that both sides of the table have to do to kind of bring that together. And if you can bring play into that, I think everybody can have fun together.
Yeah. Well, and you're explaining that, and I'm just thinking about like we can have this hard like head-to-head battle of these two departments or sets of people or however they're laid out in your organization, or there's value in both of those perspectives, right? And so what if it was framed as a collaboration? And it's actually interesting because I was having a conversation about this last week of the concept of creativity, because I still think a lot of times people assume that creativity is only related to drawing, painting, graphic design, like maybe how we decorate the back of this room, right? Like that's the creativeness. And it's not part of the creative part, but there's like so much more there is to creativity. And part of that is like creating new ideas, creating new solutions, creating new hypotheses that you can try in the market. Because if I'm a marketer and I too want to grow our revenue by X amount in a quarter, and I go into my activities based on like, how do I use this to create that? That's a creationary activity. That's being creative by definition. If the definition of creativity is creating something, right? The process of creating something,
Coming up with something new.
right? Then like who am I to say that it's not creative to come up with a new way to manage this workflow so that we can save a bunch of time and then that person can do more things like that? That's creative. And so I think we are kind of forgetting that creativity has a wider impact from a business perspective than just what colors we picked for the website.
Oh, 100%. And, I think there's a direct link between creativity and purpose. A lot of founders of really large companies, when they started the company, that's a very creative process to start a new business, right? And they have this purpose. I'm going to create this business. I want to solve this problem, blah, blah. And so the creativity, and you combine the purpose, and it forces you to be flexible because you want to solve your problem. Right. And I think what happens is as companies get larger and as they get, okay, we're out of the startup phase, we're in the, we're a medium-sized company, we're keeping to chug along, you kind of lose the purpose. What was the original purpose of this business? What was the problem you were trying to solve? What sparked your founder to create this entity, right? And I think when you lose the purpose, immediately you lose the flexibility because you're not willing to go somewhere to get to the end destination. And so I think really taking creativity needs purpose as its backbone, as its guiding factor. And I think in any business, if you don't have purpose, you don't say, okay, in a year, this is what we're trying to solve. Then you're going to run into a whole lot of problems, not just in your marketing department, but I think in your business as a whole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, what are you aligned on?
Yeah.
I've worked in large businesses, right? I can come and I can do my marketing job here on a day-to-day basis. I can't see how it contributes to the growth of the business or how I help clients or any of that. I just come, I do stuff, I go home, I get frustrated, and then then eventually I quit because this is the tenure for marketing resources in the last 20 years, right? This is how we treat them. And I remember coming out of university, and the pinnacle of a marketing career at that point was working in an agency, a traditional agency. And I remember hearing that people would burn out on average between 18 months to 2 years of working in an agency. And I was like, so why, how is that the pinnacle of what we're trying to achieve here in marketing? But it's also like we get these patterns, societal patterns, right? Then like marketers fall into, and like, this is not just for marketing, but since this is a marketing show, we will talk just about the marketing perspective of it. Like you fall into these habits. And then so people get hired to do social media management, or they get hired to do video editing, or they get hired to do something that is more tactical from a marketing perspective. And if we don't have this culture of creativity focused on our why, then like it's going to be really easy to just get caught up. And I mean, I know marketers who are just responsible for grant writing and people who are just responsible for like technical sales documentation. And so you get into the habit of that and you do that, and then you become really good at that. And then you probably become a freelancer who's doing just that. But at the end of the day, this was never like a one-person gig, right? We're all working together to make a marketing function work. And if we don't know how to think flexibly and be creative. And we don't really know how to create a collaboration either.
I think there's so much to marketing where if you can run a good marketing department, you can run a good business. Because there are so many skills. Marketing is not like call center. My first job was working in a call center.
I think we bonded over this.
I think we did. But I remember going into work and I had my script. When a client called, this is what I'm supposed to say. If they had issue, this is what I'm supposed to do. If they had this issue, and there was like a very clear line of, okay, that's a great way to run a call center. We solved 99% of our complaints within 20 minutes. That was fantastic, right? Marketing is more difficult, right? And so you have to be able to build a great culture. You have to be able to have purpose, but you also have to be able to instill that purpose in other people. I think one of the biggest things, I had a great boss actually when I was like 18 or 19. I worked at a gift basket making company.
Nice.
You wouldn't think this would be like a crazy company, but the woman who owned it, Robin Kovitz, was so smart, and she was able to instill the value of a gift basket in every single one of us. And she would bring it back to you. It's about the gift. It's about when that person opens it, the recipient, the feeling that they get. And so we were able to kind of have this bigger purpose for gift baskets. You wouldn't think it would be that in depth. But part of, I think, a leader's job is being able to be flexible enough to figure out how to instill that purpose into every single person who's working with them. And if you're trying to do that in your marketing department, I think you start there first, because I think that's the least clear-cut department on how to do that and how to achieve the results you want to achieve. And then that will give you the skills to be a really good business owner in a lot of other ways as well.
This is so interesting that you say that. So my first job was as a party planner. And it was actually really similar. So there was a couple that ran this party planning company and hired, I think most of us were like in our mid-teens, worked there. And they taught us the skills for that, face painting, how to twist balloon animals, right? Like, which I can still do, by the way, folks. So we have the skills and we have like an outline of the party, right? So a family would purchase a pirate party or a princess party or like a themed kind of party. And then we would go and we would host the party and we would do the things, right? There were things to do, but we also had the space to like create an experience for especially the birthday child, right? So like, this is this kid's birthday. The whole point of that, these people are investing like good money to have bouncy castles and people to like come and do this like fancy birthday for the purpose of it being memorable for the child, right? And until you get there, you don't really know what it might take to make that memorable for that child. So like permission to do you, right? Like figure out how you would make that happen. The kid will remember that. The kid will have fun. And it was really cool as like a teenager to be given the freedom to create something like that. And it makes me wonder, like we talk about play, right? And we know kids don't have any problem playing, right? Let's go. They play, they create, they build stuff out of rocket ships, out of boxes and all these things. But like, what happens to adults that as we move through this like responsibility component, we lose our ability to play. We forget that we actually have, because like I didn't have a lot of skills when I was 15, but I did have enough skills to observe and create something. Right. And yes, I'm creating from my repertoire. This is a more limited repertoire than I have now, for sure. But I also, like, in that role in particular, felt very empowered to create. And so I feel like this is almost like maybe it's an education related thing, a like work environment related thing where we're actually like people forgot to give you the permission to create. So then we didn't practice the skill. And it's kind of lying dormant inside of us.
You know what? But I also think it comes from like an old school business mentality, like the old school business mentality of you're not supposed to think, you're supposed to do exactly what I tell you to do.
Right.
And I think that has screwed people up left, right, and center, up, down, every which way you can imagine, to the point where people are unable to go outside their little, okay, this is what I'm allowed to do. This is my safe box. I'm just going to stay in the safe box because I'm going to get, reprimanded, or I'm going to get in trouble if I, go outside or go into something, a little bit different. And I think from a marketer's perspective, you have to kind of be, if you want to be a good marketer, in my opinion, you kind of have to be okay with, your boss coming back to you and being like, that was not good. Like, do a different video or do a different post or do something, I didn't like the way that you did that. Fine. that doesn't mean, I think a lot, it also is self-worth. A lot of people tie their self-worth to, you know, the accolades that they get, their job. And I was one of those people. Like when I first got out of university, I got a corporate job, and it was so hard on my self-esteem. I obviously did not know what I was doing. It was my first job out of university. I didn't have any like real world job experience. And so every time I made a mistake, I felt like, oh my God, I'm making this mistake. Like I'm dumb or I'm stupid or whatever it is, right? And that kind of messes you up in the head. But at that age, my whole purpose at that job and in that position should have been, I am learning. I should be chasing mistakes because I'm going to learn from those mistakes. But we, for I'm sure a variety of reasons, have lost the ability to say it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to do something wrong. You know, if you got to take a post down, you got to take a post down. It's not the end of the world. A business is not going to collapse.
It's funny because I'm thinking of like my own personal scenarios and like how many balloons I popped in the face of children, not intentionally, but because balloons pop, right? And like, this is like way more difficult to deal with than a post that doesn't perform, right? Like this, and like I was trying to deal with that as a 15-year-old, like these poor kids. I mean, anyway.
I think everybody should work customer service because I think customer service, especially if you do any sort of like luxury customer service, that gives you a whole different ability to separate yourself from your job because you have to survive some of those jobs. You know, customer service, that's the Wild West of working. If you do that, everything else seems kind of chill.
It's true. As you know, now I appreciate that. Like I had to do customer service with 6-year-olds. That's like the worst, the like most difficult audience to try and maintain their happiness level. Although just give them cake and then generally they're fine. But like, it's interesting too that you bring that up though, because I do feel like in this world of marketing technology, and like, hey, we're in a studio with a whole bunch of technology, right? Like, and it's empowering a bunch of things, but I also feel like it's disempowered us from the perspective of it's taken us farther away from the customer. And like, I feel lucky to have worked both in marketing and in client success. And the best thing about being close to the customer is that you understand like what is their experience of your brand, what do they like, what do they not, what was the decision-making factor for them choosing you, because we all have competition, or like you get to build that ongoing relationship. And you can use it as insight for the additional types of relationships you want to attract through your marketing efforts. And then if you are going to come up and be on video or something, you're like, well, I'm talking to my people, right? Like I know my people because I talk to my people. But in this world of the marketing tech stack, right? Ooh. We got CRM systems and we got post automation and we got all of these things. It's actually taken us farther away from the humans. And then we also sit in our silos at work. A lot of us do remote work now. So we're just like sitting at our computer. We're not even talking to our colleagues. Like we forgot it as marketers, what it is to have a conversation, to be creative. So then when someone's like, well, you should go and do that in a studio. And you're like, I don't remember how to do that at all, let alone in a studio by myself where I'm talking to a camera and not to a person, right? Like, so how do we recover from that?
You know what? In my opinion, I think social media has been the biggest unauthorized social experiment of all time. Because at the end of the day, this is really a social experiment. It has changed the dynamics of how we interact with each other on a massive scale for billions of people, right? And as I've gotten older, I grew up with Instagram. I got Instagram when I was in grade 9. I had Facebook when I was in grade 6. You know, that was the whole thing back in the day. You're consumed by it because you don't understand what it is. Right? At the end of the day, it is a tool. You choose how you use the technology around you.
Right.
Sometimes less is better. You don't need to have every, productivity thing and this, that, and the other thing. Forget it. You're going to get lost in the sauce. Throw back to that meme. That was a meme of all memes. But it really comes down to, okay, you have to be conscious about what you want from the technology that you're given. I think a lot of people just say, okay, this is the technology I'm going to use. And they're not conscious about how they use things.
Right.
My dad's a knife maker, as a hobbyist knife maker. And he always tells me a knife is a tool. You can choose to use it for good. You can choose to use it for harm, but you can also choose it to use it for, arts,
right?
To create something, to do something interesting. But he says, never pick up a knife unless you know exactly what you're going to do with it. And I think there's some truth to that. And I think because that's such a hands-on experience, my dad, you get out of your head and you get into your body.
Mm.
And I think we need to do that a little bit more nowadays. The technology is keeping us up here.
Mm-hmm.
We're not designed to be up here. We're designed more to be in our bodies. And you just come back to that and think, is this tool productive for me?
Right.
In the true sense of, am I actually getting value out of it, or do I feel like I'm chasing a monkey?
Right.
You know? But it comes down to, am I aware of myself enough to be able to make those differentiations?
Right.
You got to do a little soul searching in this world. It doesn't come easy. You got to know who you are.
Well, and I think this is maybe the easy out for, or that has existed up until this point, is that we haven't had to think about who we are, right? We just post an ad on a bench somewhere, and we're like, we don't have to think about who we are. I just do that, right? Although realtors have that market cornered, but like even from digital ads, right? Like we just took what we were putting on TV and put it on the internet, right? Like it's not, we haven't had to go through that process of re-looking at like who are we being when we are showing up to do marketing. We just do marketing, and it's still like the number of big companies that I see that are just like brochure marketing, right? You call it billboard marketing, right? Like I'm just going to take the front of this white paper and put it on LinkedIn, and it will generate traffic. Like what, why would it, right? Like would you look at that? And this is the thing I've always found really curious about marketing, because I talk to a lot of people, number three touching the mic. I talk to a lot of people who have convinced themselves that they don't know anything about marketing. And I mean, I think there's a lot of marketers out there that are trying to encourage that way of thinking, and just like, you don't have to think marketing. I'll think about marketing for you, and you don't have to worry about it at all. I don't think that's helpful. We have all consumed marketing since we can remember, right? Like even me, like I was watching Saturday morning cartoons when I was 6 years old. There's ads. There's a reason why kids want to go to McDonald's, right? Like we all have a relationship with marketing, and we know what attracts us and we know what doesn't attract us. And I think one of the most interesting things, and this totally ties into flexibility and creativity, is that if we're out there chasing our ideal market, right? We're chasing people, and somehow we've made them different from us. They have nothing in common with us. So like everything I know about marketing now becomes irrelevant. Like, yeah, I'm going to be chasing all the time. But what if I could look at like, okay, I'm here to solve this problem. So those people over there, they have the problem. I can't ignore them, but I have my way of solving that problem. I have my way of educating about that problem. I have my way of being entertaining about that problem, or edutaining, or however we want to say it. But like, I have my way I would do that, right? And so much of what I see is just people posting brochures because that's what everybody does. And then all it does is make you look the same as everybody else.
And it makes you look kind of dumb.
Just,
you know,
definitely boring.
Right? Like we're in an age of savviness, particularly with social media, that you can be a savvy business very easily if you want to be.
Right.
And people can resonate with you. But if you're going to do your little billboard posting, people are like, oh, you know, it's just a bunch of old people who are running that business. They don't even, that's my grandma. She doesn't even know how to use YouTube. She's posting pictures on Facebook of her nose hole, like all sorts of stupidness. Like,
even my grandma is using more emojis.
I agree, right? Use an emoji. Would it kill you to use an emoji? But then it also comes down to like, it's just people, right? It's just people. You know, like you said, we all see marketing every single day. I was at the gas station this morning and I'm pumping my gas, and now they've installed these little TVs on the pump, and a TikTok video came up. What is that? Okay, I took a video on my phone this morning because I was so freaked out about, like, even while I'm pumping my gas, I can't even have 3 minutes of peace to just
Am
enjoy
I not
the
supposed to use my phone while I'm pumping my gas, but now I can watch a TikTok video?
I'm like, oh my God. So it's a whole different thing. But I think it really comes back down to is we're overcomplicating everything. I think that the name of the game, and I have to say, I think there, like you said, there's a portion of marketers who overcomplicate things to ensure their job security.
Right.
If you are not a good enough marketer to be able to convince your client that you're valuable, you're probably not a good marketer.
Right.
I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, but at the end of the day, part of our job is it's a convenience factor. You know, one of the things that we focus on really heavily here in the studio is founder first marketing. I believe if you're a small or medium size, even a large business owner, you know your business and you know your market and you know your niche better than any marketing agency can understand that. So I think as marketers, we need to pivot from I know everything to you have so much information in your head. I have the tools and skills and experience to take that information and make it accessible to other people and then approach marketing from that perspective rather than just leave it to me. I'll figure it out and it will all be perfect.
No, I mean, there was like, I think it's not quite as popular anymore, but like 2-3 years ago, everything was done for you, right? Like you don't have to worry about anything. And I constantly have this like LinkedIn battle. I won't mention the company. If you want, you can pay attention on my LinkedIn profile. But they're always like, we can build a personal brand for you in 48 hours. And I was like, okay, so just for one, that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is creating a bunch of content for people in 48 hours. That is fair, right? That's totally fine. And can that content be used to build a personal brand? Yes, it can. But are you building a personal brand for someone in 48 hours? No, you're not doing that. And it's not, in fact, even a personal brand as far as I'm concerned, if the person isn't involved in building it.
That's just a brand that you're attaching to somebody,
right?
You know,
like, so it's fine. It can be brand building, but it is not a personal brand. Let's be clear about this. And I comment on all of their stuff because I'm like, I just want everyone to understand what's actually happening. I'm not saying there's no value in what you're doing. It's just not building a personal brand in 48 hours. That's not what it is. And there's a lot of ways. And then I think a lot of people think that marketing is about like persuading people, manipulating people, and tricking people. And I'm like, this is one of the worst things you can do from a marketing perspective, because all you're going to do in marketing is convince someone that they're buying this, and then they're going to buy it, and they're going to realize it's not that.
And then boom, your lifetime value of your customer just went through the floor.
Right. Well,
they'll
I mean,
never
like,
come
and your
back.
reputation too, right? Like, so now all of this work that I put in from a marketing perspective is worth nothing. And I don't have any way to maintain clients, right? So now I have to constantly go to market to find new people who will buy this, because once they bought it, they know that I duped them and they're not going to buy it again, right? And there's a lot of people who have built really big businesses on doing that, right? And they're like, well, that's fine because they're going to pay me $10,000 to come in the first time, so I don't need them to pay me any more money. This is not how I believe in doing business. But this is also why I really heavily believe in what I call authentic marketing, right? And which I think, like, from a studio video interactive perspective, is something where it is less dupable. It's less dupable. Is dupable a word? I don't know if it's a word. I made it a word. I make up words on this show. But like, you can feel, like, people can feel, right? Like, do you believe what you're saying, or are you duping me? Because, like, okay, you really believe that. Now I can go down the path of buying that because I know that you believe in it, versus all of this like potential duping.
And that's like, it's becoming easier. Like I said earlier, we have all of the knowledge of humanity at our fingertips. It's real easy to figure out if you're a fraud or not.
Right.
So you gotta be legit nowadays. And I think just being real and coming to a different, I think we're on the verge of a different age of business. You know, business is getting more real. It's getting less polished. You know, we went ramped up. We got super, lots of politics and everything was perfect and and businesses were untouchable. And we're coming back down to, at the end of the day, businesses are run by people. People are people, right?
People are imperfect.
People are imperfect. Businesses are imperfect. We're all trying to figure out what we're trying to do. And I think if we can get from this mindset of I have to win to all of us can win. Just because I'm doing well doesn't mean that my competitor has to do badly. There are 9 or 10, 8, however many billion people on this planet. There's more than enough customers to go around.
I always think this too. So, like, two of the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft and Apple, they're both $1 trillion companies. They operate in the same industry. They're both $1 trillion companies. You don't need your competitor to not exist in order for you to make $1 trillion. I can't even imagine what $1 trillion is like. This is crazy amount of money, an amount of money I would never need in my entire life, right? Like, it's possible to do that, but it's also, I remember writing a blog post a while back and just looking at how, like, the difference in the brand and the brand building strategies between Apple and Microsoft, because they're not the same.
No,
they didn't build their business the same way. Their tech is not developed the same way. Yes, it serves the same base need of people, but it's been developed completely differently. And there are people who are like hardcore Microsoft, and there are people who are hardcore Apple, and there are some people who will want to be neither, and there's still an industry for that, right? Like, there's so much space We have Coke and Pepsi, right? Like these are huge companies.
And Dr. Pepper
Yeah.
and all of these other things. Like that's the thing, is nothing is small anymore.
Right.
Everything is big. You know, and I think
8 billion people.
8 billion people. But you know, like that's when you start getting into scarcity mindset. We could do a whole another hour on scarcity mindset. But I really think if you just have an open and positive perspective towards the world will work out for you. I read a quote the other day, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was by Chris Williamson, and it said something along the lines of, optimists and pessimists will both be right, but optimists are the one who rules the world. So if whatever you think, you will get. If you're a pessimistic person and you think everything sucks and everybody's trying to cheat you in business, you'll attract that energy, because you will probably do the same to other people, and then you're going to get in a bad group. But if you say, you know what, I'm a really positive person and I can help out my competitor here and there, and everything will go back, will work out, you will see more opportunity. But it's my business, in my opinion, is the biggest self-learning tool that any of us have access to. You don't need a course. Just get better at your job.
And I was going to say parenting is another one too, but then you have to have a child and there's a lot more responsibility.
I'm not a parent, so I've missed out on the parenting one. So I will not touch that.
I built a business and parented at the same time. And I will tell you, wow, parenting will teach you a lot about who you are as a person if you're paying attention. But I'm not saying everybody be a parent. I'm not saying everybody run your own business, but there are opportunities to learn about this and even just to learn about yourself, right? And I actually think we're seeing this shift too of a lot of people left corporate work environments during COVID. There's a lot of people going back to corporate work environments not because they quote unquote failed at business, but because they learned something about themselves through business and they can have that more readily served in a work scenario here and there's lots of narratives that people will talk about in that arena. But I do think this comes back to the flexibility, right? We used to teach business school grads that you graduate and then you get a this job and then you get promoted to this and then promoted to this and then promoted to this and that's your career. And I happened to be a vice president when I was 36 and I was like, well, I don't want any of this. None of this is serving me in any meaningful way. And it's that's me. It's not everybody, but when we can go through that process and we can not hold so tightly onto what once was and we can explore what does this feel like now and how might we create that in the future. And now we're in the realm of creativity and flexibility. That's where possibility lives. That's where our potential lives. That's where opportunities live. And if we're out there chasing things like innovation and possibility and opportunity, it doesn't exist in the realm of just sitting and doing the same thing over and over every day until you retire. What are we retiring at now? 65, 70?
I have no idea.
It's old now.
It's getting up
My
there.
grandpa retired when he was 55, but I'm pretty sure it's way higher than that now. But we have this opportunity every day. Every day we wake up, we are given the opportunity to practice flexibility and practice creativity that will be skills that allow us to go where we want. And whether that's to take a business where we want or a marketing department where we want or a relationship where we want or a parenting adventure where we want, it doesn't really matter. The base human skills are the same. And when we can tap into those types of things, we create the opportunity that is available for us, but only if we create the opportunity that's available for us. And with that, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to leave the studio. It's fun to be in the studio. But Laila, where's the best place for if people are interested in this beautiful space that you have, or just you and your thoughts about flexibility and creativity and all the things? Where's the best place for them to find you?
Oh, thank you so much. You can find us anywhere at Social Launch Labs. So we are across all social media platforms. Our website is sociallaunchlabs.com. So do look us up. We're most active on Instagram. I love the short form, easy to consume content on Instagram. We actually, Brett, my co-founder, and I actually have a podcast ourselves where we talk about whatever comes to mind while we sit in these chairs. Sometimes it goes way off. Brett and I are also engaged.
Life partners
and business partners. So that's a whole different perspective to what we do here at the studio. So you can find us at Social Launch Labs.
Yeah, so check it out, you guys. This is a very cool space. Connect with Laila, even come in and like check it out.
Yeah.
It's very fun. These chairs are very comfy. I can see how stuff can go off the rails very easily. You just sit and have mystery tea, folks. That's what I got today. It's pomegranate of some sort, and it's delicious. Yeah, come and check it out. Thank you so much for having me into the space. I have had so much fun. And I hope that you, our viewers, have had fun with this flexible and creative version of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, because this is how we stay out of doing crazy stupid things by being flexible and staying creative. So I hope that you guys take that away for today and like, what can I do that would add a little more juice to how I show up, and give it a try. And on Tuesday, we'll be back in my regular home office because I don't have a schedule to come in here on an ongoing basis yet, but we'll figure out how that goes. And I'll figure out how to touch the microphone less when I talk with my hands.
Next time we'll get you the lapel microphone instead of the big
I
one.
feel like I hit that. It's like I know it's on my chin, and then I'm like, psh, psh, psh. Yeah. Anyway, the show is over. Folks. Thank you for coming and checking us out and tuning in on this special episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And until next time, permission to do you, everyone.